of the Esquimalt and Songhees people, and we're very grateful to work, live, and study here, where Indigenous and non-Indigenous students come together with faculty and staff to enjoy this beautiful environment. So I would like to introduce again my colleague Alejandra, who's going to be talking today about working in Canada. So this is a subject that our students are always interested in, Alejandra. So what can you tell us about that?
Thank you, Ariana. First, I wanted to say hello to everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name, as Ariana shares, Alejandra, and my last name is... Hello, thank you, everyone. We're just going to have it on mute as we do the presentation, but we'll be taking questions towards the end. So one of the things I wanted just to share is that my last name is Huerta Guerra. I'm originally from Mexico, but I've been in Canada now over 25 years. I am an immigrant to this country, and one that really has learned how to navigate, to work and develop both for personal and professional level here in Canada. So I'm very passionate about this topic. And today, really, I wanted just to first start by asking you, if you're so kind to share with us, you're going to see in this screen a little map. And I think I just would love to see, I see that we have about 65, 70 people in the conversation. If you want to take the annotate, I don't know if you could see on top of your screen, you have an annotate box. If you would like to take the annotate box, and maybe if you have navigating Zoom before, just use the annotate to maybe select a line and mark in the map where you're joining us from today. I'm always very curious to understand where are all these future participants joining us from. So in the bottom of your screen, you will have one that says annotate. So just take a dot and maybe color, where are you joining us from today? I loved always to see where people are coming. I see some students are joining us from India. That's fantastic. I'm just looking for more colors in the map. If you have an opportunity, I'll just give you a couple more minutes. Just say good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us. Yes, go ahead. There's no right and wrong. You can just scribble, point where you're coming from. This is a great thing about an interactive session through Zoom. Oh, we see South America. We see some from Mexico. That's wonderful. All the way from the East Coast here in Canada. That's fantastic. Thank you, everyone. This is great. I love this because, one of the great things about Canada is that although it looks a large territory, we're only 37 million people in Canada. And 1 out of 4 workers in Canada, as per the Stats Canada of 2020, are immigrants. And that is why, it's 26% of the population who make what Canada is today. And it's really, really exciting for me to see as well the diversity in our students. So thank you for considering coming to Canada to study, and it's great to see you. Look forward. Please join the chat and maybe tell us where, how do you say good morning or good afternoon in your country? I always love to see that. So the interaction will be there. And any questions as I go along, I will invite you just to wait. We will presenting towards the end as you've been doing in your previous sessions. So I'm going to move now to our next slide. And thank you. I'm going to see how I can clear now all your annotations. Just give me one moment. I'm going to clear them so we can just move forward. Thank you. So one of the things that I wanted to share is that as well in Canada, because of our diversity, and I'm going to launch a poll in a moment. Ariadna, thank you so much, is going to be helping me. I want to ask you, so now that I share with you the 1 in 4 workers are immigrants, and there's 26% of the population are immigrants, how many different mother tongues do you believe are spoken across Canada? So Ariadna is very kindly going to be launching the poll in a moment. Just want to see what are your thoughts in this. There is 3 options, so just choose the one that you think is the closest. It's an approximately. Okay, we're just going to give it 3 more seconds.
So right now, Alejandra, can you see the results of the poll?
Hi, I'm seeing how it's moving. So that's great. So if we can close, let's see, just give it one more moment. Let's close it now so we can move forward with the presentation. Okay, so thank you, everyone. So I see that based in the poll, many of you think that there's more than 50. So the majority thinks that more than 50 mother tongues are spoken in Canada. Well, I am very happy to share with you that no, there's over 216 different mother tongues spoken in Canada. So even though our official languages, and we're going to close the poll now just for that, even though our official languages in Canada are English and French, we do have over 260 mother tongues that are spoken in this country. And that really just emphasizes the diversity that we have within Canada. And for me, it's a celebration. And one of the things that I really bring onus to the students when they come to Royal Roads and when they're trying to identify themselves, our department is Career Service in Learning and Development. And we really seek to bring this awareness of you, of the value you bring. But my presentation today is really focused in what is happening. So once you arrive to Canada and you want to start working, so one of the things that we're looking to is, and we base everything in theory because we are an academic institution, is that we look at the career development model and what is typically how an individual and a professional can evolve to really launch not only for an internship or a temporary job or a subsistence job. How can an individual be working and engaging in developing strategies for a lifetime? Because as you know, careers are not anymore stagnant and they're not linear. We really need to understand how we are going to continue challenging ourselves and growing. And today I'm going to focus mostly in the value section and not so much about knowing your value, because I invite you as well that you will do that exploration as you come over. But it is important for us now to understand what are the values that are important to be successful in the Canadian workplace. And I think this is one of the biggest things that we hear from immigrants and students who come to Canada and want to establish, that it takes them a while to understand the differences. I told you 26% are immigrants. 1 in 4 workers are foreigners. We have a very rich immigrants with heavy technical skills. Why? Because we're based on a point system. You all have education, bachelor, and some of you may be pursuing a master's or a PhD. And those technical skills are very important, but equally important are those soft skills. And those soft skills are really the ones that are really going to put you as, you know, an advantage, not only when you're exploring what's important in the Canadian workplace, but as you continue to develop yourself within those jobs and within that industry that you seek to grow professionally. So when we're looking at how to be successful in the Canadian workplace, we're really talking to look at the values. What are some of the beliefs that really fuels the Canadian workplace? And that's where I wanted to just take a moment today to pause and look at this. So I've listed 4 for you to start and to consider them. So individualism. When in the Canadian workplace, they're talking about individualism, that is a very important thing where what do you bring to the table? What is the value and the benefit that you come to give to any organization, and maybe even just to your neighborhoods, to your communities? That is such an important value in the Canadian workplace. This is really, you know, how can you be proactive? And this is where it comes, and commonly we hear it as the initiative. What is the initiative you take to really step forward and to really understand your responsibilities, but not wait for others to tell you how to drive them? So the individual is value as well as in a team, but as well, how do you demonstrate that initiative to move forward? That is very important in the Canadian workplace. Equality. Equality, you know, I think many of you have been hearing, this is a worldwide topic, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And Canada values has always been very embraced into this equality, meaning respect to others into your workplace. Every person in the organization is valued. You know, you will not be uncommon for you to really see that, you know, executive team in the same table than, you know, some of the, you know, more entry-level positions. And it's that equality that is very important. And that comes into, so hierarchies are not as predominant in the Canadian culture. They're there, but not as formal. And that's something that some, when we come from different cultures, that we're not used to that. And that's what some of the things that are very important for us to understand. Informality, and that comes again to the hierarchy, right? And please note, informality is not that a casual attitude is showing a lack of respect. Canadians are not so much into the titles and into the hierarchy. And that comes again to the equal, that we respect the contributions of each individual, that the parts as a sum is more valuable. And that's why you really need to adapt that when you're coming from different cultures. And that's one that is the most difficult. Personally, that's the one I struggle with. That was one of the ones when I was coming professionally from a European background, and I came to Canada and I was not used to the informality. I was feeling like that was a lack of respect for my profession and what I was doing. And actually, that is the value that was very important in the Canadian workplace. And it's how to just be able to just embrace every single individual, and it's not need to have those titles or hierarchy. And then my ideas will gonna count too. The fourth one is punctuality. And, and I know this is soft skills are really related to how they're measured by the cultural standards. And that's why we're looking into this, because this cultural value of punctuality is very important in the Canadian workplace. And we need to understand that, when we're coming to this culture, the timelines it's money, right? Time is money, like in any culture. But it's very important to adapt to what the contributions in the timeframes that we're giving are followed. And punctuality is expected to show respect as well, respect to the individual or the stakeholder's time. So when we look at these values and beliefs, they're those unspoken rules. And those rules that the sooner we understand how to navigate them in the Canadian workplace culture, the more prepared we'll be. And that's what we're really seeking for you. To really, I'm not saying that your 260 mother tongues and cultures don't mean anything. No, they're very valued and they're really respected. But in the Canadian workplace, we really need to understand, how do we need to adapt? How do we need to put these ones into perspective to how to navigate and probably gain those promotions and being seen as a team player as well. So let's just go into here and see how those values really played out in the workplace culture. So we introduced those values. So now let's see a little bit of how can we understand how they play in the workplace culture. So in communication, one of the things that we hear over and over again is Canadians tend to be, communication is more indirect. It's open communication, but it's indirect. What do we mean by this? They will never tell you, maybe you did something wrong. They will suggest that there will be ways for you to improve, but they will never be direct to tell you. And that is something that culturally may be different from the places you come from. And you need to understand that when that feedback is given to you, and they call it the sandwich effect, when they give you something positive, then they tell you the area where you need to work on, and then they end it as well with something positive, is meant for you to really decipher how can you then take initiative and celebrate what you can do and the contributions you can bring forward. So it's adapting, it's changing. Proficiency in the language is very important. Maybe some of you already have English as a second language, or you're very comfortable. Some of you have been learning it recently, but gaining that proficiency in the language is really going to set you apart to be able to convey those skills and the messages that the organization wants to. The other thing I think it's important for you to know is that communication is really, when I was talking about individualism, is to speak up, to really ask questions. When you're going to be in the workplace, you're going to be expected not to take things for their face value. The more that you ask questions, the more that you take the initiative to voice your opinion. And if it's the area of your expertise, to make suggestions, the more you will stand out in that sector. And always as well, and we'll see it later on, is how do we present that information in a way that contributes? And I'll go into that in a little bit later. But that's how those values come into place into the communication. The second one would be image. Image is equally important. And when we talk about image, is your brand. How do you build your brand? How do you come across as a team player? Because working effectively in teams is a very desirable skill. And how do you not only build your own personal brand, but able to work in teams and stand out within them? So when you're celebrating an accomplishment, you don't celebrate your idea. You celebrate that you as a whole organization, department, team succeeded in this. And that is a very important value in the Canadian workplace. And something as well that takes time for us to understand and adapt when we're coming to the Canadian cultural standards of what is expected. Confidence. Another thing that comes with the image and building your brand is the confidence. Culturally, confidence can come across, in different ways. In the Canadian context, when you take the initiative to ask questions, when you present your individual ideas, and when you, take initiative, that really comes into the confidence, and that is directly linked to leadership. So when somebody is able to really express their knowledge and communicate it in a very clear way, what's the value they bring and how is it that value, or specifically how that technical skill is helping, or that idea is going to help the organization, that comes across as leadership. So that is a very important thing to keep in mind. And one of the things for newcomers, I always said, keep in mind to be genuine when you're dealing with others. Be yourself. That was probably, I could have had the choice of going to other countries to study and to immigrate, and I chose Canada because in Canada I felt that I could have eye contact with the individuals, when I could be genuine, be myself, and be exploring what I can contribute. And I think that's something that I just invite you, be genuine when you're dealing with others. Honesty is important, and the more you build that credibility and trust, the better you will be set up in the Canadian workplace. Diplomacy. So diplomacy, yes, as well. It's very much about putting others first, comes with that equity value. Diplomacy really is not to react in situation, to really think, pause and think. Is very important as well, that when we're dealing with team buildings, and that comes that cultural intelligence, that very important soft value, soft skill, of cultural intelligence, of how do we handle situations that are tense, and where do we show the respect to all parties while we're moving the agenda forward. So it's very important to avoid in the workplace conflict, and to really be able to bring all parties to have an open conversation. And we come back to the communication, right? And to be able to express that in a way that it's inviting. So work ethics, now we're coming back to the work ethics. And really this is connected back to your personal brand. We're expected to exceed expectations, right? To work hard at what we're looking at. And I think that's in any culture. From the Canadian perspective, I think it's very important to understand how performance is evaluated. How performance is evaluated in your workplace. When you're looking into how you're going to be able to progress or get the next promotion or move to the other position, is really for you to understand what is the, how performance is evaluated. How do you give your 100% into that area, and not only focus in the technical skills, because sometimes it's a combination of your soft and technical skills that will exceed those expectations. But it's really about being connected. And, even though work is important, another thing here in Canadian culture is work-life balance. So not only they want us to perform well, but they want us to as well be healthy, not only in body, but in mind as well, and having that balance. So for me, it's really discuss those expectations with your manager when you come, when you join a new workplace. Be very clear, what are they looking, what are they expecting for you? And that will set you up for a much better development into that place. And the last one will be relationship building. Right? And relationship building is one that it's key. I see it in any culture, but what's important here is that you are supporting more than just yourself. You are supporting a series of individuals in the workplace that carry along to launch that product, to support that client. And that reaching out not only within your organization, but to the outside stakeholders, and being always engaged with your community, volunteerism. What are you doing? what's the value you're bringing to your local community? Are you giving back to the local community? That's a very high esteem value in the Canadian workplace, and sometimes that they even offer time for you to be able to explore in the areas, as long as it ties with the organization values too. But it's very important to build through volunteerism, through stakeholders, through your professional associations, through your industry in your sector, and as well just within your local communities. As you know, it's very important to start building those connections when you're coming to Royal Roads. If you decide to join us at Royal Roads, this would be one of the things that we'll invite you to start doing from the beginning as an ambassador for the university, connecting to some of the volunteerism that we get launched through our different activities, to participate in some of the career events that we have. Because the earlier you build those relationships, the earlier you will understand what is a specific value that you're going to bring to those employers or those organizations that you're looking to join. So team building activities are critical. We're very happy to tell you that team is a core value, right? And I think later on today, there's a team session. I hope you join it. It's going to be a great information on why this skill is not only important in the Canadian workplace, but how do we develop it in Royal Roads through everything that you do. So this really brings me a little bit back to our beginning, and it is that when we're looking to the career development theory, we're looking to really at the importance of first knowing us, knowing what's important and what is important around us. And I think values are not only important for us, but in the culture that we're deciding to come. Because soft skills are measured in cultural standards, and the cultural standards that you bring may be very different in here. And the sooner you learn to adapt, to demonstrate, to communicate, to present yourself. I think there's a joke. If you want to be a dog, you need to talk, fly, and walk like a dog. And that's exactly where you need to be able to understand what's going to resonate in the workplace to be able for you to develop and maximize your potential. We look forward to exploring this model with you later in our courses of career preparation or through our services. I'm not going to go into that one. And there is a link here. I think Ariadna very kindly is going to share the link with you in the chat. I invite you. It's another values in the Canadian workplace and how they play along. That it's based on a book. You're welcome to as well review that book. But I think the sooner that you start identifying how those values play in the Canadian workplace, the better prepared you will be when you come and migrate into Canada, not only for your studies, but for your long-term projection of what you want to get for your career. Because you need to have that idea where you want to go with your studies. That is not at the end of your studies. It has to be since the beginning, since you choose your program. What is the outcome? What is the industry? Where do I look to be? Thank you everyone for joining me today. It went really fast, but now I open the floor to questions.
Thank you so much, Alejandra, for this wonderful presentation and for letting us know how to prepare ourselves for the Canadian workplace environment, which is very different from the ones we come from. I remember when I came to Canada, it was so different that it took me months to get used to it, to adapt my CV, to prepare for an interview. What was acceptable in my country was not acceptable here. And it's so great that Royal Roads University has a career center that allows you to go there and helps you really to adapt faster and better to the Canadian workplace. So thank you so much for giving us all this information, Alejandra. And we have a few questions.
Go ahead.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Wonderful. So the first question is, are there similarities between Canadian work life and Mexico's? Because you come from Mexico. What was your experience?
Thank you. I think the similarities probably culturally, we're very much people oriented. I think in our culture, we embrace connecting with individuals, right? It's hospitality and being open to dialogue. And that is going to be in your favor for relationship building, to understanding, to be curious. I invite you to be curious. You can learn every time you interact with an individual. You can gather information that can help you understand what's important to that individual or to that sector or that profession. So yeah, I would say that similarity of relationship building, I would see it there.
Wonderful. Another question, is there a work-life balance?
Yeah, certainly it is. There's very progressive, and we have never seen it more important than now through COVID. I think the topic of mental wellness, as I hope in most of where the students are joining us, has been a very important Canadian workplace topic. Mental wellness, life balance. It's something that I'm just, in awe of how much progress we have in this area, and employers have embraced this moving forward. And again, this is where it measures how your performance is measured, and is understanding what's important and how you're going to exceed those expectations and yet have a balance. And that's where really you're going to demonstrate what your skills and your capabilities, how your technical skills can help you to perform, exceed, and still have a balance.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alejandra. Another question. What are the work options for immigrants? The scope of career and employment, that is. Considering COVID, how did COVID impacted the job market? And more importantly, how has that impacted the LMIA?
The labor market is LMIA, the labor market. And so,
yes.
So yeah, let's first COVID, yeah, certainly impacted some of the sectors that got more, they're still struggling, and it's clear, and I think it's worldwide, is the tourism sector. I think most of you would have known with the closure of, travel, and that has really affected many of those businesses that depend on that. And yet so many others have flourished. We've been seeing with our students, some of the programs offer internships, and please remember the internships are internships that the university doesn't secure the job for you. The university gives you the tools and the knowledge to develop yourself on how to conduct that labor market research, to harness and build those relationships to secure internship opportunities. What we've seen is that we did see a drop on the first summer, but this summer, even I'm just closing some students in the tourism sector, and even though they've been impacted, they were able to secure many different opportunities. Subsistence job. Please note there is some subsistence jobs that are still always going to be required. And what I mean subsistence job is, the jobs that maybe can help us complement and pay our bills. Those are important when we're coming first to a country, or maybe when we're working and we have a limited visa to work, that could be something that is in between. But for your long-term careers, we've seen students still establishing. Is it difficult? Yeah, I'm not going to deny it. Now, instead of 100 applicants, maybe you have 200. And that's why it's so important to develop those communication skills. It's so important to be able to clearly explain what's the value and what is the benefit that you're going to bring to that organization. So that expertise, and using all your studies and assignments to really gather more information to be ready to have that conversation and build that relationship. Networking is the key now. Networking is not going to be a key piece for you to be able to continue to develop those opportunities. We look forward to working with you. We have positions posted in our internal job site all time, Career Roads. We have as well an alumni site, RU Connect, and we keep going career events where we bring different employers at different seminars and different dates in the year to come and speak with students. And that's where we're looking forward to get you engaged with if you come to Career Roads.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alejandra. Another question. Are Canadian companies receptive to hiring immigrants?
Yes. Yeah. And one of the things you need to really understand is any employer, what they don't want, what they want to avoid is to end for hiring somebody that is not going to perform or is going to create more headaches or more work for them. So that's why it's so important for you to understand how your technical skills and your soft skills are going to bring value to that employer. right? And then how are you able to clearly convey, how is that representing? And that only comes by doing your labor market research, to really joining those professional associations, to listening, to participating in webinars, to be present and mindful. And this is not something you can put for later when I graduate. This is something you can do even before you come to Canada. There's lots of resources available for you to start conducting this labor market research, understanding who are those associations, for you to start gaining that information and knowledge. Many of you are going to come already with degrees and work experience. You need to understand now how your work experience is transferable into the Canadian workplace. And that only comes by listening, by connecting, by doing information meetings. But yes, they are hiring immigrants.
Perfect. This next question is very interesting. Is there any preference given at the workplace in Canada based on your skin color?
Well, thank you for that question. And that comes to the equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I think we would be naive to say that that doesn't exist in Canada. It exists in every part of the world, unfortunately. However, this is a topic that today has never had greater attention than before. And I think there is a real compromise from employers, not only to put it in paper, but to leave those values. And that's where you and your research is going to be so important. How do you understand what that organization is doing in this aspect? Meet with people who work there, understand what they do for that. And that can help you determine if this is the right fit. But I would say that is something that I'm very hopeful, and with CNET, in many employers, we have tools actually sharing with employers. There's so much right now in the topic of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I think I'm a positive individual, one that always sees the glass half full. And for me, it's important that there's greater awareness and greater accountability for those people who are decision makers to make that difference. And still a long way to go, but I think it's in a trajectory of more inclusion.
Great, thank you so much, Alejandra. The next question is, can it be possible to get a job offer before moving to Canada?
So one of the things you have to be very aware that when you come to Canada, and again, I don't know if you have immigration advising sessions in this
Yes.
Open registration. I invite you to go to those sessions. Unfortunately, I am not able to give any advice in this regards. We have certified individuals. You have limitations under a student visa, what you can or cannot do in Canada. And one of the big things that I recommend is that honesty, and if you are looking for the long-term pathway of immigrating to Canada, abide by the immigration rules of Canada, because you want to make sure that the audits will never put into questioning if you did anything beyond what was required. You could get part-time offers, but again, I would advise you to connect with our immigration advisors and ask them how would that play with your arrival and your visa that you were required to enter into the country. Unfortunately, I cannot give that information, but immigration advisors at Royal Roads may be able to provide more light. We have people who are nominated at a provincial level. There's a provincial nominee, and maybe they get a job into here, and then afterwards they join Royal Roads. That could be another pathway, but unfortunately, I cannot speak to that in full detail.
Yes, earlier, the first session we had today in the open house was about immigration advising. And the RICIAs, the immigration advisors at our university, were talking about that. They were saying that once you have a study permit and you start your academic program, you can work up to 20 hours a week being a student with a student visa. But as Alejandra said, if you are more curious about that topic, I would recommend you to email us at learn.more.international@royalroads.ca and send us your questions there. And even you can book an appointment with an immigration advisor, and they will be able to answer your specific questions. But thank you again, Alejandra. I don't see any other questions. So we will resume this session, and thank you again for those amazing pieces of advice you're giving to our students. I will remind you that this session is being recorded, so you will receive a recording after the session in a day or two, so you can listen to this again and get advantage of these important pieces of advice. Again, Alejandra, if you have anything else to say to close the session?
No, just that I think the next session is my colleague, Sue Brown, and she's going to go a little bit deeper into this topic. So just hang on, don't leave. She has more to go. I just wanted to compliment first with the importance of those values. And now she's going to go into some additional tips and advice on how to be successful even before you're coming to Canada. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day wherever you are or end of your day. It's a pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you on campus. Don't hesitate to reach out to us if you ever come, or if you are connected online too, to our blended students. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Alejandra. And now we pass the floor to my colleague, Andrea, who has, I guess, more presents for students. Andrea?